and show God that if you throw enough chaos at people that believe in you, they'll stop believing in you too. And God said, I'll take this agreement, but you can only go this far. You stop here and no further. And you can't kill him. Wouldn't even let him touch his being the first time around. You can't go that far. And we get to that end, and God put a limit on what Satan could do chaotically to Job. And Job still maintained his integrity. The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And so Satan comes back and goes, just let me throw a little bit more chaos with him. You told me I couldn't touch the man. But if you just let me mess with his health, you just let me throw a little chaos into his physical being, he'll turn away from you. And God said, okay, I'll allow it, but here's the limit. God still does this with us today. Nothing that we go through in our lives is more than what God has allowed us to bear. If we turn over to 1 Corinthians 10, Paul says, starting in verse 11, now these things happened to them as an example, and they were written for our instruction, upon whom the ends of the ages have come. Therefore, let the one who thinks he stands watch out that he does not fall. No temptation has overtaken you, except something common to mankind. And God is faithful, so he will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will provide a way of escape also, so that you will be able to endure it. God puts limits on the amount of chaos that he lets his people endure. Because he won't ever let you deal with something that does not have the ability for you to persevere through it, because we always have God on our side. Regardless of the chaos that goes on in our lives, God is always our out. And because God's always our out, there's nothing that exists that you will ever deal with that you cannot say no to, because God strengthens all of his people. And so God, in a metaphorical way, but also recounting the things he did in Genesis 1, is telling Job this. I put bounds on the chaos. You didn't see it because you weren't there for my conversation with Satan, but I put bounds on it. Moving on to verse 19. Where is the way to the dwelling of light, and darkness, where is its place, that you would take it to its territory and discern the paths to its home? And you know, for you were born then, and the number of your days is great. God is saying, you were there when I created the light and put it in its place and bound it up, told it where to go, because you are as old as I am. Have you entered the storehouses of snow, and have you seen the storehouses of hail? for which I reserve for a time of distress, for a day of war and battle? Where is the way that the light is divided and the east wind scattered on the earth? Who has split open a channel for the flood and a way for the thunderbolt, to bring rain on a land without people and on a desert without a person in it? To satisfy the waste and desolate land and to make the seeds of grass sprout? Does the rain have a father? Or who has fathered the drops of dew, and from whose womb has come the ice and the frost of heaven? Who has given it birth? Water has become hard like a stone, and the surface of the deep is imprisoned. Job cannot see all the things that are going on, right? And one of the ways God decides to remind him of this is by letting him know that when rain happens, God's causing it. But I don't just cause the rain to fall where people are at. I cause the rain to fall in deserts where nobody is. Because my creation exists out there too. And it needs to be watered. And it needs to be nourished. And it needs to be taken care of. And I pour out on this. I take care of so many things that you are not aware of. Because I am God. He's trying to remind Job that Job doesn't see everything. Job doesn't know everything. And even if God, I think one of the reasons we're not going to get an answer from God as to why the things that have happened to Job have happened to Job. I think one of that is because Job wouldn't understand. But after the conversation that God has with him, Job understands that, you know what? I'm asking for a little bit more than what's beyond me. Or I'm asking for something beyond what I'm capable of. God is just reminding Job that I take care of everything, even when nobody's around to see it. In verse 39, we move from physical inanimate objects to living creatures. And God says, "Can you hunt prey for the lioness or satisfy the appetite of young lions when they crouch in their hiding places and lie in wait in their lair? Who prepares feed for the raven when its young cry to God and wander about without food?" Sounds a whole lot like something that Jesus talks about in the New Testament, specifically the ravens in Luke 12. Jesus, talking about worrying, says you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't worry. And the example that Jesus uses, he says, "Consider the ravens. They neither sow nor reap, and they have neither storehouse nor barn, yet God feeds them. How much more valuable are you than the birds?" Going back to creation, God creates all of the inanimate stuff: sun, moon, stars, land, trees, ground. Puts chaos in its place, and then puts living creatures out on the earth. And he puts birds and fish and beasts out there and saves the pinnacle of his creation for last, in mankind. And he makes us out of his own image as his crowning achievement in creation. because he's put something that resembles him into what he's made. And we have a habit of missing out on that. Oh, he takes care of the birds. He provides what they need. And yet we want to worry about things that are outside of our control. I can't control whether or not my hair changes color. I'm finding that out the older and older I get. In fact, the more worrying I do, the grayer my beard gets. And I can't put it back the other way. And we spend time worrying about meaningless stuff like that in the grand scheme of things. And God is constantly going, hey, you know that lioness that's out there hunting for food? I put food out there for her to find. Hey, you know that raven that exists? Oh, by the way, we're in the Old Testament here. Ravens are unclean. They're not a clean bird. So when God uses this unclean animal as an example, that carries weight. Because even the unclean animals that exist out there, I take care of. And guess who's more valuable to me than them? You are, Job. All of the chaos that you're going through, I've taken care of, because I take more care of you than I take care of the rest of the animal kingdom, because you're more valuable to me. In verse 39, he says, do you know the time that mountains goats give birth? Do you observe the calving of the deer? They can count the months, or can you count the months they fulfill? In verse 5, he says, who set the wild donkey out free? Who opened the bonds of the swift donkey? To whom I gave the wilderness as his home and the salt land his dwelling place. In verse 13, he says, the wings of the ostrich flap joyously with the pinning of the feathers of love, for she abandons her eggs to the earth and warms them in the dust. In verse 19, do you give the horse his might? Do you clothe his neck with a mane? Do you make him leap like locust? His majestic snorting is frightening. And then 26, he says, is it by your understanding the hawk soars, stretching his wings toward the south? Is it at your command that the eagle flies high and makes his nests on high? God spends all of chapter 39 pointing out all of the things that he's given to the rest of creation. All of the rest of the animal kingdom. I've given them their strength. I've given them their speed. I've given them their power. I've given them the land that they dwell in. And guess what? You can't control any of that. But Job, I care more about you than the rest of that creation, because you resemble me. So chapter 38 and 39, God shows up to talk to Job. Our initial question, why is it important? Well, one, Job asked to. And God is willing to listen to us and talk to us when we're going through chaos that we don't understand. And sometimes that answer that we get is, look at the rest of the world. I provide for all of that, but you have to remember Genesis 1. When I created all of it, I saved you for last. Questions, comments, stones to throw? I made it before the bell rang. All right, I release y'all back into the world.